back and we have a countdown. This is Punk Monk Z, and we're going to look at patterns. And we're going to try to extract as much information from these patterns. And by doing so, hopefully that's going to improve our game. Okay, because we're going to extract important information from it. Okay, we're going to know what to look at, what is important, and then put it together. Okay, with some solution. All right. So join me in the chat. Say hello. All right. All right. All right. So where you from, Lil Host 2K? Where you from, man? Are you from the US or somewhere else? Oh, cool. Cool. California, baby. California. All right. So you ready to start? Are you ready to start, baby? All right then. Let me put my glasses on and let me move in the analysis board. And voila, baby. Here we are. Okay. Do you have visual, baby? Do you have visual? All right. So this is our first position, and let's break it down into understandable parts. And so where do we start? Do you have any thoughts about this position? If you do, share with me your thoughts. Okay, so I'll give you a little time to put it together, and I'll give you maybe about 20 seconds, not 20, yeah, 20 seconds or so, okay, to get oriented, and maybe you can say something about it. What do you notice? What information can you pick up here? What is relevant? So this is the position in front of you. What do you do with it? What is important? What is the idea? What is functional? What is not functional? And what do you want to make that's not functional? Okay, so the H file is open. Let's look at it. All right. When I look at this position, what I notice here is this. I notice that here, this king in blue is frozen. It cannot move. Okay? That's what I noticed. The king is frozen. Okay? And that's a good sign for the attacker. Okay? That's a good sign for the attacker. So somehow, if I can play this move here, rook takes on g7, right? That'll be a checkmate if the rook was protected. You see that? Because other squares around the king are shut down. Okay? So this is shut down, this is shut down, and this is shut down. Okay? So if I take if rook takes on g7, I'm going to shut down the king, and all the squares around the king, including the king itself, will be shut down. That's mate, right? So that's the idea. So what is the problem here? The problem is the rook on g1 is not protected when the rook takes on g7. You see that? That's the problem. Okay? Now you have now half the information you need to figure out what you need to do. Okay? So do you have any thoughts what you need to do here? Okay? So the king is frozen, and if the rook can take on g7, and if the rook was protected, it will be checkmate because the king is frozen. You see that? So what do we do here? What do we do here? Okay, quickly, give me some thoughts. Okay, 20 seconds, baby. All right. Protect the queen and attack either the bishop or blast queen. Okay, now we're playing for checkmate, so we're playing for the king. Okay, so let's take a look how this might work. Okay, and all right, so the king is frozen, so let me now freeze all the squares around the king. Okay, the king is frozen, so basically this square is shut down, that square is shut down, this square is shut down, That square and this square shut down. Okay, so the only square that's alive right now is where the king is standing on. Okay, all right. So now if the rook can take on g7, we're going to shut down the king, and that'll be a checkmate. Now notice something very important. This diagonal by the bishop is aiming on g7. Okay, so what I need to do is team up the rook and the bishop, team it up to attack on g7. Okay, because the king is frozen. You see what I'm saying? So I gave you all the information you need to know now. So you should be looking for moves that will clear the diagonal from b2 to g7. That means the pawns on d4 and the pawns on e5 should be cleared. So the diagonal will have so the bishop will have a view on the diagonal and can see the square g7 and will join the rook attacking g7. So that's the idea. So when I talk about the clarity in the pattern, how clear is this? So this is something that's very clear. The king is frozen, and the rook is hitting g7 once, and the black king is protecting g7 once. So we need to create a mismatch on g7, and it seems like a bishop on b2 should be cleared. The diagonal should be cleared. So the attacker, there'll be two attacks on g7, only one guard. The king on g8. Okay, so now how do we do this? How do we make this happen? We make it happen by playing this move. Okay, I attack the bishop, and that opens one of the squares on a diagonal, right? And when he takes, for example, here, and now we tempo the queen, and now the bishop diagonal is open from b2 to g7. And if he takes here, then it's checkmate because the king is frozen. You see that? So that's a simple idea here. Okay, that's a simple idea. Okay, open the diagonal so the bishop can see g7 because the rook on g1 already does that. And since the king is frozen, if I can take on g7, that'll be checkmate. Yeah. Okay, so I do everything with tempo. I can play this, attacking the bishop, and the queen takes and open the diagonal with d5. And now the diagonal is open, and the bishop runs along this diagonal, right, attacking g7, and so does the rook. Okay, and this was some kind of clearance sacrifice for the bishop to join the rook and attack g7. Ratio attacks to the defender is 2-1, and since the king is frozen, it will be checkmate. All right, so let's look at some other variations that might be possible here. So let's say e6. All right, now let's say the bishop goes back to e8, and now we can play maybe d5, and the diagonal is open. And now when the queen goes somewhere, okay, and now the queen is protecting, okay, let's say g7. What we can do is play the move d6. You see, and now the queen has to leave this horizontal. Okay, and when the queen leaves the horizontal 7th rank, we can play rook takes on g7, and the king is frozen, therefore it's checkmate. Okay, so those are some of the ideas. All right, so what else is there? Okay, after e6. Okay, let's say he takes with a bishop this time. Okay, and then we open up the diagonal by playing d5, and now this is a distraction. Okay, to move the rook away from the g7 square. Okay, and then we'll take the free piece, and now we can take. Okay, and if you look at the material balance here, okay, white is winning, and the bishop's attacking the queen, and the queen will move somewhere, and we have a material advantage, and that'll be that. Okay, and that's a win. So when you look at this position, and you say, you know, I mean, do I have clarity about this pattern? Am I clear what I need to do? Okay, the first thing you do is collect information. Okay, and one piece of information is that the king is frozen. Second piece of information is that the rook is attacking g7, and if the rook would take on g7 by being protected, it will be checkmate. Okay, so now what piece does the rook have to recruit to help him? And notice the bishop on a diagonal is attacking g7, and there are two obstacles in the way, the two pawns. So what I need to do with tempo, clear those obstacles. And here's the tempo, and here's the tempo. And now everything's clear, the mate happens. Okay, so that's all I have to say about this position. What do you think? Okay? So that's how simple this is. So you look at a position and you try to decipher, okay, in very simple terms, what the pattern might be. Okay, be very clear what your intentions are and why would it work and why it will not work. And then try to remove the obstacle and make it work. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one and let's see what we can do with the next one. So let me remove this and let's go to the next pattern. All right, and this is the position, and let's open it up, and this is the position. Now look at this position, get familiar with this position, and then we'll chat. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is collect information. Now the black king is not frozen, so the black king has three squares it can move to, right? Let's take a look. Okay, so the black king can move on this square, can move here, or can move there. So altogether the king has three squares. Okay, and also notice that black has too many toys. Okay, too many toys. Okay, so basically let's just cancel things which are alike. This is alike, we'll cancel, and the queen's alike, will cancel. The rook is alike, will cancel. So what is left over, okay, that has not been highlighted, and those are the three pawns and a bishop. So that means that white is -4, at least -4. Okay, okay. So in the long run, white has to be losing because white is -4. Okay. So what we need to do now is do something very, very fast, and we have to use some kind of combination, some kind of sacrifice in order to create a situation where we either win or we escape with a draw. Okay, and we avoid defeat. All right. So that's what we need to do. Now, you got that much, right? So the next question is, okay, you have to use attacking moves. Okay, do you know what attacking moves are? Yes or no? Do you know what attacking moves are? So everything has to be forced, so you have to use attacking moves. Attacking moves are three types. Okay? They are called checks, captures, or threats. Those are attacking moves. Okay? So when you're attacking the king, you're going to be only using one of these three in a sequence. Any move that does not fit that category is excluded from the sequence. So what is a check? A check is attack on the king. What is a capture? Capture is taking something. And what is a threat? A threat is a check in two moves, or a threat could be a capture in two moves. Okay. So on move number one, you prepare the check on move number two, or on move number one, you prepare the capture on move two. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So in this position, let's take a look at it, and we're going to be looking at attacking moves. Okay. Now, so the first type of attacking moves we should look at are the checks. Okay, do we have any checks in the board? Okay, and then we make a list of all the checks. Now, do we have checks? The answer is yes. Here's a check. Rook takes on h6. Yes, that's a check. Do we have any more checks? No, that's the only check. Okay. Now we're going to go through the sequence of rook takes h6 and see where it leads. Okay, and so I'm hoping either to give checkmate, and if I cannot give checkmate, I'm hoping to get a draw by perpetual. Okay, most likely I can't win because when I sacrifice my rook, I'll be only left with a queen. Okay, and the queen by itself probably will not be able to mate. It always needs a helper. Okay, so let's see how this might work. Okay, so if I play a rook check, okay, and if the king moves over to g8, I can take the rook and put it on h8. That'll be mate. Yes. Okay, so the rook must be taken, and I play queen check. Okay, and now the king moves, and then we'll play check here, and a check here, and check here, and I can keep repeating the pattern, and I get a draw because of repetition. 3-move repetition is a draw. Okay, and notice to get this draw, I had to sacrifice a whole rook, okay, for 2 pawns. So materially, it's a bad deal. and plus I'm down material to start with because we are at -4. Okay, but what counts is the result. By giving a material in a lost position, we're able to avoid losing, and we're able to create a draw. And that's the whole point. Okay, the whole point of chess is to win, and if you can't win, it's to draw. And that's how simple it is. So if you cannot, get the highest prize, which is a win, you get the next one, not losing. And that's what happens here. And we have a perpetual check, and that's a draw. Okay, so this is our starting position, and look at it. And where's the clarity in this pattern? It's very clear that we're losing in the long run. That is clear. Okay, what else is clear? Our position is mature, and that means we have to sacrifice, we have to use violence right away because there's no room to set anything up, because black has more material and he's able to consolidate if we do something quiet. So we have to do something very loud, something with a combination, something with a sacrifice, and rip the shield from the king and get to the king as quickly as possible. Okay, so how clear is this? There's only one idea. We have to use attacking moves. And what attacking moves? Checks, captures, or threats. Okay, so if we look at checks, there's only one check, so we're going to investigate. So we start investigating. Okay, rook takes. Okay, pawn will take back, and then queen will take on h6. King is going to move over, and then we start the pattern of repetition on h5 and g5, and that produces a draw. Okay, so we escaped defeat. Okay, so this is the pattern, and the topic of this presentation is clarity in the pattern. Okay, and clarity comes actually from the calculation. Okay, you might have an idea, and idea, let's say it's called a fuzzy wuzzy idea, and clarity comes from concrete calculation. Okay, for making moves for both sides, best moves, and that creates the proof. And you have to create proof, and proof is created by using attacking moves. So there's only 3 types. So when you weave a sequence of moves, you're only using 3 types of moves to weave the calculation sequence. Anything else that's not part of those 3 categories of moves are excluded from the sequence. Okay, and that's how you think. Okay, when you're attacking. Are we clear? Any questions, any statements, any declarations, any confessions? Talk to me, baby. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the next example, and let's break it down, baby. Let's break it down. So what is this about? Let me blow it up. Voila, baby. And let's look at it. What's going on here? Okay, just a sec. Okay, I need to make an adjustment. So here's the position. This is our starting position. All right, so this is our position, and we are white. Okay, and we are white. That means we're not black. And you might think, I wish it was black, because black has more toys. And usually having more toys is the side that wins. And we are white and we have less toys. So this is a bad omen. Okay, but that's what we got. So let's make the best of it. All right, let's make the best of it. Okay, now, so let's look at this position and start collecting information. Okay, so information we're going to collect are going to be from verbal ideas and also from visual ideas. Okay, verbal ideas are ideas in terms of what the intent is, and maybe you can explain our intent, and those are verbal ideas. And visual ideas is actually calculation and getting information from calculating. Okay, so we have verbal and visual, and when we start collecting information, we're going to reach a point of clarity in our mind where the mind says, yeah, I understand this is what we should do. Okay, and for the mind to reach that point of clarity, we have to collect information, either verbal or visual. Are you with me so far? Okay, so try to collect as much as you can, and give the mind a break, give the mind a chance, okay, to digest the information and make sense of the situation. Okay, all right, now we have like 2 possibilities here. Okay, we can take on c5 with the bishop or with the rook. That's the deal. Okay, now how do we proceed? Okay, now when we look attacking moves, we're looking at moves that produce checks. Okay, so if you look at this position, the bishop does produce a check. So based on the forcing method, okay, and based on the rule of the forcing method, we should look at moves that create checks. And bishop takes on c5 is the move we should look at. But let's say I don't know. Let's say the king moves here, and now white has no momentum to continue here, and it's black to play. You see that? And it's black to play. Okay, okay. Now what about if the check doesn't work, and we're using the first choice of attacking moves, which is the first category or the highest level of attacking moves, a check, and that doesn't work. The next level is capture. So maybe we should play capture. And if we take with the capture with the rook will be not be empri anymore because it's not protected on g5. Okay, and here we're threatening the queen, number one. And when the rook does move, it's going to have the bishop is going to give a discovered check. You see that? So it seems to me that if we're going to look at this position, it probably should be rook takes on c5 because it carries momentum. Okay, the attack doesn't end on the first move. The attack continues on the second move also. So based on that logic, we should be thinking of rook takes c5. Are you with me so far? Are you with me so far? That's my question. Who's with me, baby? Who's with me? All right then. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy, baby. This is the Punk Mung Z, and we're looking at patterns and try to find clarity. Try to have a mind that's clear, crystal clear, baby. All right, so I can understand what the task is and why that's the task and what we need to do. What are the obstacles and how do we remove them? Okay, we need clarity. All right. So what's going on here? Let's make some moves. Okay, here we go. So when I play rook takes c5, okay, we're attacking the queen. Yes, and the bishop is hiding behind the rook to get when the rook moves to attack the king with a discovered check. And what's going to be funny is when the queen moves somewhere, the rook is going to follow the queen and pick up the queen. And why would the rook able to pick up the queen? Because the bishop is going to be giving a check to the king. And when the king moves, the rook is going to eat the queen. You see that? So what's interesting here? Well, he says, well, if that's the case, I'm gonna lose my queen. I'm gonna take the rook. I'm sorry. See, for example, in this position, I can just follow, and now the rook is going to eat the queen. Why? Because the bishop is striking the king with its cover check. Okay, so the queen's going to be a casualty. Okay, so that's the whole idea. So when we play this move, rook takes. Okay, the queen I think has to take on c5 to avoid the situation. And now, if the idea is this and this, okay, okay, and sorry, and this, right? And black is going to win. Black is going to win because black is going to uh, move and maybe win the second pawn and escort these two passed pawns. It's an easy win. So in this position, okay, what is the result? What is the result? Okay, does black win this? Okay, it will seem it is true. Black wins that unless white sees a very nice move that creates stalemate. And let's take a look at it. So after rook takes c5 and queen takes c5, okay, and the magic move here is king to h1. Wow, wow! Look at this, king to h1, and now white cannot lose. White cannot lose. White was down material at the start of the fight, okay, and by moving back to h1, white cannot lose. Do you see why? Do you see why? Marijuana baby, welcome to the show. This is the Punk Mung Z. Long time no see, baby. Okay. All right. So you don't see. It's very simple. Let's look at it. Okay. Now, if the king moves anywhere, the bishop is going to eat the queen. Okay. And there's no way for white to lose then if the bishop eats the queen. All right. So in this position, the pawn can't move, the king can't move, and the pawn can't move. Right. So the only thing that can move in this position is the queen. Is the queen. Okay. So when the white king steps back here, I'm sorry, that's not what I want. When the black king steps here, okay, the only thing that can move in black's position is the queen. Okay. Now it has to move on the diagonal because it can't get off the diagonal because the bishop is going to be attacking the king. So when the queen moves, it has to move the diagonal to protect the king. So it can move here, it can move here, or it can take the bishop. Okay, you see that? So if it moves here, bishop is going to take the queen, and white can never lose. Okay, if the queen moves here, the bishop is going to take the queen, and white can never lose. And if the queen takes the bishop, okay, this is called a stalemate because the pawn is frozen, can't move, and the king can't move. So there's no check, and white has no moves. There's a name for this. It's called stalemate. It's a draw. Okay, so now let's go back to the beginning position, and that's what we have. This is the beginning position. Okay, and white is able to escape defeat, being material down, by finding a very sly move. Okay, it's moving the king backward and putting the king, okay, in a stalemate situation by giving up the bishop. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's take a look. Let's look at this. Rook takes pawn, queen takes, and queen takes rook. So right now, white gave up a rook. Okay, and then what he does, are you ready? He moves back and gives up the bishop. And when the bishop drops, white has no moves, no legal moves. And it's a stalemate, a draw. Wow. So at the very beginning of the situation, let me just put it back. At the very beginning of the situation, white has a deficit in material. Okay? So if certain things don't happen quickly, black is going to win because black has more toys. Okay? But here's the magic trick. White is going to give up the rook and the bishop to create a stalemate. That's amazing. And that's what happens. Okay? And let me just make it happen again and we'll move on. And we go. Yeah, baby. Who's your daddy? Yum, yeah. Oh, see, I keep doing that. And the best move is, not you, buddy. And I say, what did you say? What did you say? What about now, baby? And black says, what? You're dropping a bishop? You gave me a rook? Now you're going to drop the bishop? Are you suicidal, man? And white says, bring it on, man. Bring it on. Let me see what you got. And white says, yeah, baby. Now what? Oops. Stalemate. When you're losing, you sacrifice what you have left, and maybe you can escape with a stalemate. That is fantastic. Okay? All right. Very good. Let's move on, baby. All right. Let's move on. Let's see what's next. Let's see what's next, baby. This is what I'm looking at. And let me blow it up. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, baby. And let's put it here. And let's give you guys a chance to look at this. Look at this. Feast your eyes on this position, man. Now again, we have a similar problem. Black has more toys again. Okay? Black has more toys. So basically, how do you avoid losing when you have less material? Okay? And the solution is maybe is to create Stalemate. When you have less material, one solution is to create stalemate. Another solution could be perpetual check. Okay? But how does it create stalemate here? That's the question. Okay? Now notice something very important about black's position. The black king is frozen. What does that mean? It means the black king cannot move. Okay? So we can strike the white king, and if the black king cannot move, that's called checkmate. All right? So do you have any ideas how to do this now? Okay? All right? The weakness in the position for black is the weakness of the king. Okay? So let's use this weakness to escape defeat. And how do we do it? Now, we're getting ideas. We're getting ideas. And when you get ideas, you collect information. And somehow you're going to test some of this information that you have collected, and then you're going to either say, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, there's a little problem with it, but it's interesting. Or you're going to say, well, this idea just is garbage. It doesn't work. Okay? Or maybe you have to improve it somehow. Okay? Now, what I read here is check king with pawn, or rook to f4. Okay? So there are two ideas here. There are two ideas. Okay? And you know what's funny here? What's funny here is Lil Host 2K is that you're using the method which is called the attacking method. Am I correct? So your move selection of finding moves comes from the attacking method. Am I correct? And that's the right thing to do. Okay? When you're attacking the king, you have to use the attacking method. An attacking method is made of three parts. Yeah? Checks, captures, and threats. And the highest level are first checks. So if there are checks, we have to make a list of them, and we have to try every one of them. And if they fail, we go to the next level, which are captures. If they all fail on that level, we'll look at threats. So that is the methodology of finding moves, okay, when you use the attacking method. That's how you create variations, and that's how you calculate. That's how your calculation is directed. Your calculation is directed by the attacking method, by those three different types of moves. Are you with me so far? All right then. Now, so let's look at this position and test it out. Okay? So we have a check and we have a check. So now we have two checks. Okay? So let me mark one. So pawn check or rook check. All right. Now, if I play pawn check, the king is going to escape. Okay? So right now, the king is frozen, cannot move. So when we play check, we don't want the king to move. We want to maintain it frozen. So if we play the pawn check, the king does move and escapes. So pawn check is wrong. So basically we made a mental list, okay, of two candidates. We made a mental list of two candidates, and they're both checks. E4 check and rook to f4 check. Okay? So e4 check fails because the king moves and there's no mate. So what do we do then? Okay? Let's examine rook check. Okay? Let's examine rook check. So we play rook check. Okay? Now the king is still frozen. Okay? And the king can't take the rook. So the king can't fight the rook because the rook is protected by the pawn. So the king cannot fight the rook. And the king cannot run away because of certain problems. Okay? So he cannot fight and he cannot run. So there's only one hope for the king. Maybe he has a friend that can help him. And he does have a friend that can help him. You see that? So the bishop removes the rook and the king is still frozen. And now we play e4 and we play the pawn check, and where the king is still frozen and it's mate. Okay? So let's take everything back here, all the way to beginning, and this is our starting position. Okay? Now, the theme is clarity in the pattern. Okay? And we're getting clarity in the pattern by starting with some ideas, some observations, right? And then we test it by calculation, by concrete examination of moves. Okay, and that's how these things work. Okay, let's move on to the next one, guys. Let's move on to the next one, and let's pick up some more knowledge, baby. Okay, now what is this position about? Okay, I want to make a comment about this position, and what you've noticed about this position is that white has centralized these pieces. Centralized these pieces. Okay, the only thing that's not centralized really in this position are these two units right here. Let me illustrate it. Um, Let me blow it up first, and then I'll illustrate it. Okay, the only thing that's not centralized are these two units. Everything else in white's position, not counting these pawns, is centralized. Okay, all right. So if you're going to talk about pieces and not meaning pawns, this is the only piece that's not centralized. Okay, it's not making contact with the central squares, and therefore it's not active. Okay, all right, all right. And what is the topic here? By looking at this position, this is the topic. So let me tell you what the topic is, and then we're going to examine it. Here's the topic. Okay, how to harmonize your pieces. How to harmonize these pieces. Okay, for example, you might look at master games, and you play them over, and you notice that one side, all the pieces somehow work together so well with other pieces. They're all part of a team, and every piece has a function to do, and they all blended so well. It was like an orchestra, different instrument playing a certain tune, certain melody, and you put it all together. It sounds so swell. Okay, and the melody is fantastic. Okay, that piece of music was harmonized and was very pleasing. So in the same way, how do you harmonize chess pieces? Okay, how do you harmonize? How do you make the team work together? And the answer is, it all starts with centralization. Okay, so if you want to harmonize pieces, make sure your pieces are centralized. That's where it starts. So centralization is the prerequisite for harmonizing. Okay, so now look at this position. White controls the center. Okay, black pieces are split in two. Okay, and white is going to win my mismatch on the king side, which means what? White is going to attack the king side where the black king is with more pieces than black can defend. That's called a mismatch. The attacking numbers versus the defensive numbers mismatch, and the attacking group is stronger than the defending group. And now let's see how this works. Okay, so let me blow it up, and let's take a look at it. Okay, now this pawn attacks across the equator. This pawn attacks across the equator. This pawn attacks across the equator. The knight attacks across the equator. The bishop attacks across the equator. The queen attacks across the equator. Okay, the queen attacks across the equator. Okay, then the bishop here attacks across the equator. This bishop here attacks across the equator. So basically, if you're going to be attacking the enemy, your pieces have to control squares across the equator. Okay, you see that? Attack squares across the equator. I mean, there's only one piece in black position that attacks across the equator, which is the queen. It's attacking one, two, maybe three squares. Okay, one piece is able to attack across the equator, and the rest of them are shut down. Okay, even the rook is attacking across the equator. Okay, you can see the fifth rank. That's across the equator. Okay, so you see that's the problem. And now we can find moves, and the moves are now created by attacking method. There it is. Okay, so he had to play this move because the knight and the bishop were attacking here, so he defends. Okay, okay, and now he attacks again. Okay, he defends. And now by moving here, the knight still attacks across the equator, and he has a threat of taking the pawn here, or even taking the pawn there. Okay, okay, so what do we see? We see super centralization. We see continuous attacking moves. Okay, and now when he took the pawn, now we can take here or here. Now, which pawn do we take? And by taking which pawn, the criteria is what pawn do you take where it's going to cause the biggest damage, and you take on e7, and now this square is weak and that square is weak, and also this square is weak. Okay, so now when it comes back, we continue our attack. There it is, check. Okay, now if he takes here, we'll take back, and all the dark squares are weak. We're going to play bishop takes pawn, or even bishop to here, and mate on the diagonal. Okay, all right, because then with the bishop gone, all the dark squares in the black castle are going to be weak and exposed. Okay, so he has to move, and then we play this move. Okay, and now the bishop is going to be pinned. Okay, and some lines we can play queen takes rook, because the bishop cannot take our queen back because of the pin against the king. You see that? And then let's say he does something, and now the knight is guarding this piece and also that piece. Okay, so now we can remove guards, right? And now make this magic move. And what is the magic move here? Okay, the rook is not protected. Okay, why? Because the bishop is shielding the king from the bishop on d4. Okay, and that's that. All right, and that's why this fails. All right. So what is that subject here? What is that subject at the very beginning? Okay, the subject is how do you harmonize pieces, and it has to do with very, very effective centralization. Okay, and it's called active centralization. Okay, now there could be something called passive centralization, where you actually can control squares, but the squares you're controlling are central squares in your territory. But when you have active centralization, you're attacking central squares in your opponent's territory, and that is superior centralization. Okay, because if you want to win, you have to attack, and you have to cross the equator. Okay, so centralization is about active centralization. It's about attacking squares across the equator. Okay, and the more you have, the better chances you have for the victory. Okay, so that's the idea. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions, baby? Talk to the monk and the punk. All right, let's move on, baby. Let's see what else we can find here. All right. All right, I love it. This is an easy peasy lemon squeezy position, man. All right. Here's the position. What do you know about this type of position? What do you know? That's the first question. What's my favorite color? I don't know. I used to say blue. Okay, but I'm not so sure anymore. I think all colors are kind of swell. Okay, I think they have their own prettiness. Okay, um, but anyway, here's the position. Here's the position, and we have to find a way to make improvement. Okay, now this king, bishop, and knight versus king, and the first thing you should know about these type of end games, in order to deliver checkmate, the defending king has to be pushed in the corner of the bishop you have. And since your bishop is a white square bishop, the black king has to be pushed into the corner, which is a white square corner. And that's what we have here. Okay, the black king is, right next to the white corner square. So he's in the right position to get mated. Okay, in the right vicinity, in the right neighborhood, baby. All right. But in this position, he wants to run away. He wants to run away and escape somehow to the center, because in the center he knows he will not be able to be mated. And if somehow he's forced to go to the edge of the board, he's going to go to the safe corner or this safe corner. So the first line of defense is the center, Put the king in the center and live in the center as long as possible. That's the first line of defense. And then when you're forced to go to the edge of the board, you want to run to the corner, which is a safe corner, which is not the corner of the bishop. Okay? And that's the safe corner. Okay, you see what I'm saying? All right. So this is the position, and it's white to play, but the king wants to run away from the mating corner. Okay? So the first thing we do, we shut down the escape. Hello, baby. Don't go there. Don't go there, baby. You have to stay in the corner when we get you. All right? Now, so now the king has to move. Okay? Now listen to me. This is important. So let me say something that's important. I mean, everything I say it's important, okay? That's the way I do things. All right, guys? Okay, but anyway, there are certain color signals in the position, okay? The knight, the white knight is on a dark square. So what's the color signal? The color signal is when the black king steps on a dark square, it's going to match the color or what color the square the knight is on. Okay, so the black king will be on dark and the knight is on dark. That's a signal for the knight to do check, to attack the king. So right now, the knight is on a dark square and the king is on a white square. Okay, that's a mismatch. So a knight cannot move because it's waiting for the king, okay, to step on a dark square so it can match the color the knight is standing on. So since the knight cannot move here because the king is not on the right color, okay, we're going to make a waiting move to set it up. So we still have to control this square. So we can go back maybe to h3. And now the king is on the same color as the knight. That's a signal for the check. And that's what happens. Knight says checky wecky. And since the bishop cuts out the escape square on c8, he has to go to the corner. Okay, and now the king in the corner is frozen. It has no moves. And then the bishop gets a check on a long diagonal. It's a mate. So we have the king in the middle, the knight on the left, and we have the bishop to the right. Okay, and that's the pattern. Okay, do you guys have any questions about this pattern? Let me hear it. Let me hear it, baby. Do you have questions? Nine. That means no in German, man. Okay. All right then. Sounds good. Let's move on. Are you learning? Are you learning? Yes or no? All right. Here's the next position. And let me take it back. And here's the next position. All right. I know it, man. Who's Magnus? Who's Magnus? Okay? Come on, seriously. This is the punk monk, man. Okay? Living, breathing. Okay? Living, breathing what? Okay? Living, breathing mind. Consciousness. Okay? Alright. So here's the deal. Now when you look at this position, do you have any thoughts about this position? Okay, let's just collect your thoughts. Let's put them on the table and let's examine the things that are on the table. Okay? Which are your thoughts? Okay? All right then. So here's the situation. Here's the situation. Let's start collecting information. Okay? What information do you have about this position? Okay? Well, okay, but let's go even more basic. Okay? I mean, white has 3 units and black has 1 unit. Wow. It's 3-to-1 ratio in white's favor. 3-to-1. Okay, you would think that 3-to-1, a gang of 3 against a gang of 1. Can you have a gang of 1? You need at least 2. Okay, but let's say a gang of 3 against a gang of 1. Okay. Okay, it's a huge mismatch. Okay? And gang of 3 should be able to munch a gang of 1, right? All right. So that's the first piece of information. Okay? Now, what else can we say? Well, we want to promote the pawn. If we can promote the pawn safely, we have a queen or rook, and that's enough to win. So in order to win, we need to promote. So we have a mismatch 3-1, and if I can promote a pawn to a queen or rook safely, we win. So now we have more information. Okay? The next thing is, can we do this? And the answer is no. And the answer is no. The result is a draw. A draw by stalemate. Okay? And the reason it doesn't work is this. Okay? The queening square, here's the pawn, and the pawn is going to advance here, and this square here is a8. That's the queening square. Okay? The queening square does not match the color of the bishop. That's why it's a draw. You see? When you have a rook pawn, okay, in order to win, your bishop has to be able to attack the queening square. That means the bishop should be on the white squares in order to win, because the bishop can match the queening square, and therefore you'll be able to win by chasing the king out of the corner, and then you'll be able to promote. But the situation is the bishop is in the wrong color. The bishop is in the wrong color. It's the wrong color bishop, because the bishop on f4 attacks the dark squares, is not able to attack the white corner. You see? And therefore it's a draw. Okay? Who understands the concept? Do you understand the concept, man? Alright, it's pretty easy. You see, when I give instruction, how easy am I? How clear am I? It's easy peasy with lemon and squeezy. Alright, so let me take it back. And that's it. So this position is a draw. Alright, let's move on. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this is a good one. I kind of like it. Okay, here's the position, and white is going up the board, and the white king wants to move over, okay, to one of these two squares, so it can push the pawn and make a queen or rook. Okay, all right, but it's black to play, and black is going to jail the white king by either playing king here or king here, f7 or f8, and the king won't be able to come out. And then by moving back and forth on these two squares, he's going to maintain the jailing situation, and the king will not be able to come out of the jail, and therefore producing a draw. Okay, that's the idea. Another thing to notice is that white has an extra knight and an extra pawn. Okay, the pawn doesn't count unless you can come out. Okay, but the situation is, can the knight somehow help the king, the white king, to break jail? Can the knight here help the king, the white king, to break jail? Okay, by removing the king that's jailing, the black king that's jailing the white king from these two squares. Okay, so do you understand what the concept here is? Do you understand the concept? Let me hear a yes. All right. So now my next question is, what do you think the result is? It is black to play. It is black to play, and what is the result? So your choices are, with black to play, white wins, or with black to play, black draws. So is this a win or a draw? That's my question. Let me hear some ideas. Okay, give me your best guess, or your best answer, or your best intuition, or your proof if you have it. No, no. It is white black to play, and black has a choice between two moves. It is black to play, and black has to make a move to jail the white king. And it can go to f8 or f7. Those are the two choices. So only now does black have a choice. After that, everything is predetermined. So what is the solution? What is your first guess? All right. Do you move the king on a white square or do you move the king on a dark square? So that's what you have to decide. And then after you make the first decision, that you don't have to make other decisions because hopefully we're moving between these two squares, f7 and f8, moving back and forth and jailing the white king. That's the basic idea. Okay. Okay, so you think that white is going to win this? Well, believe it or not, with correct play, this is a draw. And let me show you why. Let me show you why. The knight is in a white square. The knight is in a white square. And the correct move is to put your king, okay, in harm's way by putting your king on a white square and therefore matching the knight on a white square. You see? And then the knight can move to give a check, and then there's a flow to move to this square, jailing the king, and then from there moving here. So the knight is going to be pushing the black king to f8, and then to f7, to f8, to f7, to f8, to f7, and the king will be frozen in the corner, and white can never make progress. So the black king is going to go with the flow by putting itself, okay, in danger, so the check can happen and then go to the next square and the check can happen. He's pushed to the next square, the check can happen now again here, he's pushed here, and then the check can happen here and he's pushed here, and so we're going back and forth and therefore a draw. Okay, but look at this. If he makes the wrong choice, okay, then I can shut down this square. It's shut down, and now black is in a Zugzwang. Okay, any move that black makes is losing because now with this move, both squares are shut down. This is shut down by the knight, and this is shut down because of Zugzwang. He has to leave. He has to leave, and when the king leaves that square, this king can come out on these two squares and then promote to win. Okay, so what do we have here? What do we have? Let me take it back. So this is a starting position, and the correct move is to create a flaw, okay, by moving to one square then the other, and it's going to be back and forth, and up and down and up and down, okay, and that will provide the flow for the draw, okay, and the knight is going to be pushing the king from one square to another, okay, and by doing that the white king will be jailed, and the king cannot break the blockade to be able to promote. And that's the basic idea. All right, so when you look at this position, now you have some ideas what this is about, and maybe why it works, and so on. And now you have a much more clear idea what this position is about, what this pattern is about, and you have now more clarity about this pattern than when you started. You see that? All right. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let me see who's here. Let me see who's here. All right, there's some people here. There's one called No One. Okay, No One. No One. Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, anyway, No One, make sure you follow me, No One, because I'm awesome. Okay? All right, then. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's see how I do this. Let's see how I do this. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh, wow, 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 wow. Look at this one. Look at this one, man. Okay. This is one of the famous rook endgame positions. Okay. Now, believe it or not, this position might be at least 500 years old. 500 years old. So, if you're a history student of chess, you know the name of this position, and you also know how this position works. You know the outcome of this position. You know how it works, what are the mechanics, and so on. Okay, and this position, like I said, is about 500 years old. If we go back in time 500 years, before that time, nobody knew how to play this position. Okay, so this guy 500 years ago came. His name was Lucena. He was a priest. Okay, and he got his position, and he solved it. He developed a method where the method worked, and there was a result, which is a win for white. Okay, and then it's going to take me maybe, I don't know, maybe less than 10 minutes for me to explain to you why this is a win. Okay, and before the 500 years back in history, nobody knew how to play this. Even the brightest minds were clueless how to play this. And within 10 minutes or less, I'm going to show you how to do this, and voila. And that's the power of knowledge. Okay? Before this was discovered, maybe for 1,000 years or whatever, nobody knew how to do this. As soon as this was discovered, within 10 minutes, you know how to do it. And that's the power of knowledge. This is totally amazing, no? All right. So, So this is called the Lucena position after Lucena, the creator of this method. Okay. And another way to describe this method is called bridge building. Bridge building. Okay. And yeah, let's leave it there. I won't talk about any more of that. I could, but I won't. And we'll just look at the solution and see what's going on. Okay. Now let me set it up and let's start. Okay. Now notice, for example, the pawn is going here, and the pawn promotes on d8. It's a queen, and then white is going to have a queen and rook versus rook, and I mean, yeah, queen and rook versus rook, and it's a easy peasy lemon easy, lemon squeezy easy, okay, situation, and white wins with the extra queen, right? Okay, but there's some problems here. The problem is that white king is in jail, is in a cage. Why? Because this rook forms a fence, okay, on this line, on the C line, and that means what? That means the white king cannot step out because of this electrical fence. Voila, electricity, baby. And this king here shuts down escape on these two squares. Okay, okay, and the rook shuts down movement on that square, and also on c7 and on c8. So the king is frozen. The king is frozen. He has no movement. And the question is, how do I advance the pawn? Okay, when both sides of the pawn, both doors are closed because of the king and the rook. So that's the situation. That's the situation we're dealing with. Okay, how do we do this? Okay, so what we have here basically is two guards, guard number one and guard number two, on each side of the pawn, right? On each side of the pawn there is a guard, guard one and guard two. You see? Now which guard is the weaker guard? The weaker guard is the king, right? That's the weaker guard. So we have to attack the weaker guard, and by doing that, the weaker guard moves, and we open the door for the king to escape. And then when the king moves out, the pawn is ready to advance. So in some way, we enabled ourselves maybe to dream of the possibility of promotion. Yes? Okay? So we open the door. And now the question is, do we come out now, or do we need to do something else? If we come out now, the black rook is going to rain checks on the white king continuously till the king is forced to go back where he came from, and no progress will be made. So the correct procedure is this: open the door by checking the king and move the king to the equator. That's step one and step two. All right, that is the correct procedure. Step one, open the door by attacking the weaker guard, and step two is move the rook to the equator. And what the rook at the equator is going to do is going to shield the white king from the black rook. And let's see how that might work, okay? And now let's say he makes a waiting move, and now it's white to play. So when the rook is at the equator, the white king can step out. And that's what happens. And he plays checky wecky, he moves over. Checky wecky, he moves here and still is connecting and protecting the pawn. And when he comes here, he moves toward the rook. Okay, and now by playing this, the bridge is built. So this is the bridge, and this is the shelter square behind the bridge, and now the white king has a shelter because of the bridge right here, the rook. Okay, so now if exchanges happen, okay, there are two files separating the pawn from the king, and because of this distance, okay, the pawn is safe. So when the king moves, we have a promotion and it's a win. Okay, so this is the basic idea. Okay, this is the basic idea, okay, of the Lucena method. Okay, number one, we need to push the pawn, and the pawn is blockaded by a king, so we need to create space for a king to step out from blockading its own pawn, and we attack the weaker piece, which is the king. Okay, and that opens the door for the white king to step out. Okay, so step one is to attack the king. Okay, let me just do that and show you. So step one is to attack the king and create space for the white king, and then step number two is to create a bridge. Okay, and the rook to the equator, and then when that's done, step three is to unblock the pawn. Okay, that's step three, and after a few checks, the white king moves toward the rook. Okay, moves toward the rook, and then the bridge is built, and now the white king has a shelter, and if exchanges happen, the pawn can promote, and it does promote, and it's all over. So this is the basic idea of the Lucena. Okay, who understands this? Let me hear it. Yes or no? Let me hear it. You know what's funny? What's funny is this. I remember, for example, when I was in college, I learned to play chess in college, and I was a student union, and I was playing a chess game, and I just started, and I was playing a kind of a rated player, a tournament player, and I had the Lucena position. I was winning. Okay, theoretically I was winning, but I did not know how to win it. And the guy was playing laughed at me and says, "Ha ha ha! You don't know how to win the Lucena position." I remember that. Okay. Now I crush him like a bug. Okay, I know why I said that. Oh, anyway, so okay, what if the king moves to e6? Okay, let's take a look. All right, let's take a look. So that's the basic idea. Let's go back all the way back. So let's say open the door, build a bridge, get a king out. Check here, 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 and now what are you talking about? What are you talking? So this is the position. Is it this position you want to make your comment? What if the king moves to e6? The king is on e6. What about it? Black king. Oh, I see. At the very beginning. Got it. Okay, let's look at it. Good question. Okay, so here's the starting position, and we play check, and the king does not move two squares away from the pawn, but moves to e6. Okay. Now, the reason this is not a good move, because right now white king has a bridge already. The bridge is the black king. So instead of using a rook to build a bridge, white king is going to use the black king as a bridge by now moving over, and now this is the bridge, and the bridge provides shelter right here because the white rook cannot give a check to the white king because the black king is in the way, and I'll be able to promote a pawn next move. Okay, and this move is no good because I can just take and continue taking, and checky wecky yum yum, and it's all over, baby. Okay, does that answer the question? Okay, good. Okay, now I can talk more about this position, and I can show you some traps and things like that. But you know what? You know what? I'm going to leave it there. Now you have a kind of a clear idea. Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing, okay, about it, okay? And I can talk more about it, but I won't. I'll finish with this one, and that's good enough for now, okay? Let me do this, okay? Let me do this. So here it is. So here's the position, okay? Open the door. Step one. Step two. build a bridge, and step 3, unblock and try to promote. Now check here, and now if he keeps checking, the king is going to come up, and if he keeps checking back here, coming back, we're going to build a bridge, and we know what happens. Now instead of checking again, what happens is just makes a waiting move, and now he's controlling the queening square. Okay, so now what happens is if he did keep checking continuously, the white king will reach the bridge and have shelter behind the bridge. But now the black rook is not going to help the white king come to the bridge. He's going to just come here. Okay, so now the white king cannot get close to the bridge. So what happens now? The bridge has to come to the king. You see? Okay, so it makes a waiting move, and then you build a bridge, and if the check happens, they can come here, and notice, for example, we have a bridge and we have shelter, and now it's winning. Okay, so there are two ideas here in this position. Okay, let me just review it very quickly. Okay, open the door, build a bridge, and unblock the pawn. And when checks happen, the white king moves toward the bridge, and then the bridge steps in, and you create shelter and you win. That's method 1. Okay, now let's go to method 2. Okay, open the door. Okay, build a bridge, king out, and now the checks happen. Checks happen, and there's no more checks. No, that's not what I want. There's no more checks because he makes a waiting move. Now, since the white king cannot get to the bridge, the bridge goes to the king, and the rook goes back one here, and now the bridge is built, and it's all over. So there are two methods in the Lucena, two parts, and those are really simple parts, and that's how they work. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about this, and I don't want to make it complicated. This is good enough. Okay, so pick up from this as much as you can, rewind it, replay it, think about it, set it up on the board, meditate, have some tea, listen to some music. Everything is chill, baby. All right. Okay, any questions about the Lucena? No questions. So I'm going to assume there's no questions and move on. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, so what am I doing next? I'm going to the next puzzle. See, smarts. Okay, so let me see how to do this. Energize, reduce, and let's move on, baby. All right. Now, you know what's funny about this position? So I think what I find interesting about chess is to have methods, to have some kind of methodology of solving problems. Okay, Emanuel Lasker was the second world champion, and basically was a big believer in methods. Okay, and it seems to me his excellence of playing was based of understanding different methods, different methodology that he would apply in order to solve problems. Okay, or to get signals. Okay, in order to understand what to do and why it's done. Okay, so anyway, so maybe so I mean, I think all of these great players were methodologists. I mean, starting with Stein as the first world champion, he kind of systemized, okay, a certain materialistic theory of thinking, okay, based on certain elements. Okay, so in that sense, he was a methodologist. And then Lasker came along as the second world champion and explained some of Steinitz theories, and he kind of developed more methodology behind it. And then Capablanca came along and he added more stuff, and created methodology. So it seems to me as knowledge leaps forward, there's always the area of methodology is always increasing, and that's how knowledge works. Okay, it's all based on method, basically, and then method becomes common knowledge. Okay, that's all I have to say about this. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this position, and why would I create this position? Notice there's no white king because we don't need it. That's why it's not there. Okay, but what's the point of this? What is the point of this? Okay, so the reason I put this diagram up is to show you that there's color codes in the position. So there's a pattern, and the pattern is made of certain colors. Okay, now we see if we have a knight on d7, it's in a white square. Okay, so what does that mean? If a knight is on a white square, the two targets should be also on the white squares. And guess what? The two targets are on the white squares, and both targets should be of a higher value than the knight. So when the fork happens, okay, the knight is going to be hitting two targets of a higher value than itself, and that's the way it should be. Okay, so here's the color code. Here's the color code. When you have a knight, your target should be the same color as the color the knight is standing on. And when you have a bishop, it's the same thing. The color code is always the color the bishop is standing on. So the color is important in patterns. Okay, now with the knight now we can give a check to the knight by going to f6, but that's a single check. We need a double check. We need a fork. We need two targets, okay? And the queen is too far away from the king for the knight to fork both of them at the same time. So we have to bring the queen into the orbit of the knight so the knight can strike at the king and the queen at the same time. Okay, and to do that, we use the bishop as a magnet, okay, to draw the queen closer. So the targets, the queen and the king, will be in the orbit of the knight. Okay, so let's take a look how this might work. Okay, so the color signal is the white squares of the bishop. That's called a fork, bishop fork, and he has to take. And now we have a knight which is in a white square. We have two targets which are in the white squares. Okay, and now the knight is in the orbit of both targets, and now we have a check, and we're able to pick up the queen. You see, at the cost of a bishop. All right, I found this very interesting. Okay, I found this very interesting. That's why I put it up. Okay, signals in a position based on color. Okay, so there you go. Think about it, and but don't overthink it. All right. Anyway, so this is some of the stuff I like. Okay, and for me, excuse me, for me, chess is somewhat more interesting to me. Okay, if I understand what I'm doing, and usually to understand what I'm doing, I have to have a methodology. Okay, where this understanding comes from. Okay, so when I show you stuff, I'm going to be showing you methods, so you can apply this so-called I don't know what, this technology. Let's say you can apply it, and uh, you can recreate with it whenever the opportunity arises. You can recreate these patterns. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on. So how do I move on? Oh, now I know how to move on. Got it. Okay. Let's do this, and let's move along. All right. So this is very interesting, and there's a reason I put this one up, and let's look at it. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is try to collect information. Okay. Let's just collect information and collect as much information as you can. Okay. And then when you're done collecting as much as you can, maybe you reach a point where you have enough, for your mind to be able to use it and come to some conclusions. Okay. All right. So you're right. So no one, oh my goodness, no one is talking. I didn't notice. No one. I like that. I like that. No one. That's a cool. That's a cool handle, man. No one. It's as cool as Punk Monk. No one. You know what I'm saying? I like it. Okay. So no one. Don't forget to follow me. Okay. And click the little heart button to follow the punk and the monk, man. And the Z's watching you. All right. All right. So here's the idea. So the theme here is overworked pieces. Overworked pieces. Okay. So in black's position, well, first of all, you know what I noticed here? First of all, I noticed, for example, that white is -3. Okay, that's a piece of information right there. Okay. So basically, if we trade the things which I like, okay, when they're gone, then black is going to have 3 extra pawns, and we lose. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay. So the longer the game lasts, the greater chance for white to win. Okay. So white has to do something very immediately right now, or otherwise black is going to correct the situation, and the 3 extra pawns win. Right. Okay. And this is all based on a weakness. This is all based on a weakness, and the weakness is the weakness of the black queen. That's the weakness. The black queen is weak. And why is it weak? Because it's overworked. Now, why is it overworked? What do you mean it's overworked? Okay, so what is the function of the queen? The queen if there was no queen here, okay, if there was no queen here, I can bring my queen to the back rank and give a checkmate on the back rank mate. Yeah. Okay. So the function of the queen is to protect the back rank, and also the queen's attacking the rook. So the function of the queen also is to protect the rook. So now the queen has two jobs. You see, has two jobs. Okay, and because of this weakness of the queen, you exploit it by attacking the queen by taking the rook. And now look at this. Okay, material shifts in white's favor. And now if he takes, now the back rank is weak. And now we step on the back rank and the mate is given. Okay? All right. So what was the lesson here? Let me see. What was the lesson? So what's the lesson here? It's about the overworked pieces. And overworked pieces are weaknesses. So if you can identify overworked pieces, you attack them and you break them, because basically they are obligated to protect two or more things. Okay, so you snap them, okay, by attacking the over piece, so it will be stressed and something breaks. Okay, and that's what happens here. Okay, by taking the rook on e7. Okay, the queen breaks because the back rank becomes unprotected. Okay, and that's that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so let's move on, baby. All right, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, I like this concept somewhat, and okay, so let's look at this idea. Let's look at this idea, and let's collect information, see what you see, and then we'll chat. Go for it. I'm eating a peanut. Okay. Okay, looking at this position, and what are some of the thoughts that you can identify that are running in your mind? What is your mind saying to you? What are the thoughts? Share with me. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have a mind? Okay, let me hear it. All right. The reason this example is here because this example is going to serve a function, and the function is that by using checks, by white using checks, white can get free moves, like two free moves in a row. Okay, I mean if you have like one free move, that might win games for you if you have an extra move anytime you want to use it. Okay, but in this position you have like two free moves. Okay, now how does that work? Let me show you. Okay, for example, here's move number one and here's move number two, and that's mate. So I need two moves to mate, right? Okay, but as soon as I make my first move, black is going to start attacking me. I'll get mated, and he has that extra piece too. So now the question is, how do I get these extra moves? How do I get two moves in a row? And the way you do that by use of checks. So the first move is a check. Okay. Now when I give a check, the king is under attack. So that means the rest of black's army can't move because it's asleep. Okay, it's asleep. Why is it asleep? Because the king is under attack. If the king is under attack, okay, the army, the black army, has no ability to move because the king has to take care of itself. And another thing is that the black army cannot protect the king. So if the black army cannot protect the king, and the king's under attack, it's under a check. That means the black army is sleeping. So if I can keep the black army sleeping by now producing a second check, okay, the black army is sleeping and now it's mate. Okay, so basically what happened, I used two free moves and the black army was sleeping. Okay, so black never got two moves that he needed to for his army to defend the position. And the reason is because I used checks. Okay, so here's an interesting way to give yourself extra moves. Okay, I mean, under normal circumstances, you have a move, your opponent has a move, and the right to move alternates. Okay, but you can create situations where you have extra moves. You get you get like two moves in a row, and your opponent doesn't. And by having extra moves, you're able to win the game. And this is one of those examples. And it's based on checks. Checky Wecky, who's your daddy? Checky Wecky, who's your daddy? So I made two moves, right? And now I made my third move. Okay? In the meantime, Black Army was asleep. Okay? Do you understand my point? Okay, so you can play a chess game and produce free moves for yourself. Okay, and you have to first of all you have to understand the concept, and then you have to find the moves. In this situation, it was checks, and those checks produce free moves for one side, and eventually the side that was giving check was able to construct a pattern where the mate was given. Okay, based on the free moves because of the checks. Okay, so that's the lesson there. All right. All right then. Let's move on. Let's move on, baby. That's what I'm saying. Okay, what is this about? Okay, let's take a look at this one. All right, so here's the position, and you're playing black. All right, so let's start collecting information. Let's start collecting information, and tell me what you see, observe. What do you see? What do you observe? Let's start collecting information. Okay, little by little, we collect, we'll accumulate. Okay, but then at some point it might be a big information. It might be big enough for us to be able to make decisions. So let's start collecting whatever we can. Okay. So what do you see? You're playing. You're playing. You're playing black. So maybe I can flip the board somehow for you guys. Let me see if I can. Okay. All right. So you're playing black. You're going up the board, and yeah, start collecting information. Tell me what you think. Okay, eating chicken ramen noodles. Very nice. Thank you for sharing, little host 2K. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So what's the deal here? Okay. Okay. So what's the deal here? We have four pawns, and he has five pawns, right? Three and two, five, four. So we're minus one in material, right? We're minus one. Okay. We have a queen and two rooks, and he has a queen and one rook, but he has two knights. Okay. So let's take a look. So as black, we have queen, two rooks and a knight. One, two, three, four. And he has one, two, three, four. So he has four pieces. We have four pieces. We minus a pawn. Okay. So, but we have to exchange. So we minus a pawn, but we have to exchange. So we have two, but minus one. So it seems like what is it saying? Black is plus one, right? And white is minus one. All right. So there you go. Now we now collected some information. Okay. Now I would like as black to break into G2. Okay. I pressed something I shouldn't have, so let me try again. Okay, so basically, I would like to break into G2 because the two rooks converge on G2. Okay, I noticed that, but there's a guard. There's a guard here that protects G2. You see that? So this knight is protecting G2, and now two rooks are attacking G2. All right. So right now, attack and defensive ratio is 2 against 2. We have two rooks attacking G2, and white has two pieces defending G2, the king and the knight. Okay, so what do we do to create a favorable ratio? So a favorable ratio is 2 to 1. Is there a way to create a 2 to 1 ratio here? Okay, now we're using simple mathematical concepts in order to create a mismatch, and this mismatch will be favorable because we have two units attacking, you will have one unit defending. 2 to 1, 2 is bigger, 2 wins. Okay, how do we do this? How do we do this, people? Any ideas? Well, the white king on G1 is defending G2, and the knight on F4 is defending. So we have to remove the guard, the knight on F4. Okay, that seems to make sense. So we do that. Remove the guard. Okay, and now when he takes back, okay, the attacking defensive ratio is 2 to 1. 1, 2, attacking G2, and only the king is defending it, so the ratio is 2 to 1. Okay, and then we continue. Okay, so basically this is based on attacking methods. So we have so basically this is removal of the guard. Okay, so this is like a capture. Okay, then a check, then a check, then a check, and mate. Okay, so now so there you go. So capture, check, 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 and mate. All right. So this fourth sequence of move was based on a capture, and then 1, 2, 3 checks. So capture and 3 checks is the sequence of moves in the variation. Capture and 3 checks is the sequence of moves, and when you put them together, it leads to checkmate. Okay, and that sequence of moves is based on the attack method, because the attack method is based on checks, captures, or threats. And that's it. Okay, so you use this kind of method, this methodology, okay, and you make it your own, and it works. Okay, it has been proven, and now since you understand it has been proven, you adapt it, and you'll be able to get similar results. And the more you practice these things, the better you become. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to the next one, baby, and let's see what this is about. Let's see what this is about. All right, here we go. All right, so let me flip it for you guys, and there it is. Here's the position. You're black. How do you play? Okay, so I mean the first thing I would look at is the material balance. So we have what? Black has 4 and 1. We has 5 pawns, and black has 4 and 3. 4 and 3 is what? 4 and 3 is 7. And so white has 7 pawns, and black has 4 and 1, 5. So black is a -2 in pawns. Okay, so black is -2, and also the queens cancel each other, the rooks cancel each other, and the only thing that black does have is a knight. So what does this mean? So white is black is -2, and also is minus a knight. So black is -5. So now all of a sudden we collect the information, and black is -5. He's down 2 pawns, he's down a knight. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So black is -5. And there's a mismatch also. The only thing that favors black here, it is black to play, number one, that's a good thing. Having a move is that certain type of advantage, having a move. Okay, so he has the advantage. And what else does he have? He has attacking ratio of 3 against 1. Okay, so he's attacking h3. Let's take a look. He's attacking h3, Okay, and and when he sacrifices the queen for the pawn, the G line is going to get opened, and when the pawn takes the queen, the rook is going to take the pawn, and we mate in the on the corridors, on the two files. Okay, and now, what's the deal here? Okay, what is the deal here? Okay, the deal here is materially materially black is busted. Number one, materially. Okay, but as compensation, it is black to play. That's an advantage, and it's a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, so there's more attackers than defenders, and therefore that's why black is able to win, because it is black to play and he has a mismatch. Okay, so Lick, he doesn't win from a global perspective. He wins because in a local area he's able to give a checkmate. Okay, because of local superiority, not global. Okay, and that's what it counts. So now the idea is queen takes h3 and mate. Okay, and the final position is 2 attacking and 0 defending. So in this position is like 2 attackers, 0 defenders, mate, 2 to 0. And this is a result of mismatch. So you always try to create a favorable mismatch, and creating a mismatch is a certain type of pattern. Okay, and there you go. And let's move on to the next one. Let's see what the next one looks like, and we'll pick up somehow, some way, somehow. All right, so let's do this one. Yeah, let's do this one, and let's chat about it. All right, so this is the position. And you're playing black. So let me flip the board for us. Okay, so it's flipped and it's black to play. Okay, so let's start chatting about this position, and what are you thinking when you look at this position? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Okay, so materially speaking, black has 4 pawns and white has 4 pawns, so that's equal. He has a queen and 2 rooks, and white has a queen and 2 rooks. He has a bishop, he has a knight. So materially, it looks like it's even Steven, so to speak. So to speak. Okay? But one thing for sure, queen's blocked on diagonal. I'm not sure what that means. But okay. So now it is black to play. So black has advantage because it's black to move. Okay? And the back rank, look at the back rank. The back rank for white is only guarded by the rook, yeah? It's guarded by a rook. So there's only one defender. There's only one defender on the back rank. So let's take a look at it. This is the only guard of the back rank. Okay? So the number is 1. Okay? So now, and notice for example on this line, we're attacking to square here, and to square here is what? E8. We're attacking it twice with the queen and the rook. So this square here is hit twice, and this square here that I'm touching on E8 is only guarded 1 time. So the ratio of attackers to defenders on E8, A, B, C, D, on D1, I'm sorry, on D1, this is the D1 square from white, right? So the attacking defensive ratio on D1 is 2 to 1 in black's favor. All right, but here he can't do it. If he eats here, okay, he will take with the king, and when he plays check somewhere, the king is going to escape. All right, so now how do we create a situation where the king cannot escape? And the way we do it is to play this move. And now the attacking defensive ratio is 1, 2 against 1. So now we're attacking the rook on f1. We're attacking it, okay, twice, and it's only guarded once by the king. So it's threatening checkmate. And then when the rook is taken, because there's no other choice, okay, attacking defensive ratio on the d1 square is 2 to 1. Okay, and therefore we play the queen check and recapture its mate on the back rank. Okay, so there you go. So if we take everything back and we get to this position, yeah, we get to this position, and now we see the rationale. We see the rationale, okay? What kind of activity, what kind of thoughts, what kind of mental activity was created to solve this, okay? And so, yeah, and just by listening to what I'm saying, I mean, you can recreate these thought patterns, okay, and make sense of it because they seem reasonable in the explanation, okay? And then when you saw the explanation, things did work, and that's the pattern, okay? Yeah, but it is black to play in this position. It's not white smooth, okay? It's not white smooth. Okay, it is well, if it's white smooth in this position, it doesn't have to move pawns. It can just take the rook, right? Okay, I guess you're thinking make escape squares. Okay, but by why make escape square? Win the exchange right away. But the point is, it's black to play. It's not white to play. All right, that's the point. Okay, so black is enjoying the right of the move, and therefore having that right gives them a certain type of advantage. So if there's any tactical elements in the position, the right to move is going to exploit it. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on. Now there's a reason I kind of gave us this position, and we'll chat. Okay, take a look at this position and let's chat. What do you see here? What do you see? Why do you see it? When do you see it? And should you see it? What am I talking about? Okay, but it sounds good, didn't it? It was kind of funny too. Who knows? Anyway, so here's the position, and it's white to play, right? Okay, so one knight is attacking, the other knight is defending. Okay, usually the defending attacking pieces are stronger than defensive pieces, right? Okay, because attacking pieces can perform two functions. They can attack, which they do, and they defend if they have to. But usually defensive pieces don't have the ability to attack, they have the ability only to defend, and therefore they're more restricted. Okay? And that's why attacking pieces are superior, because they have probably double power over a defending piece. Okay. So, and that's one of the reasons when you play, you want to force your opponent to defend, because when you do that, the power of that piece that's defending has dropped its power. It's less than before. Okay, so it has been weakened. All right. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, actually, there's a dummy square for the knight. There's something called a dummy square. Okay, and the knight has a dummy square, and that dummy square is this square right here. If the knight is here or here, okay, those are dummy squares. So is this, and so is that. So the knight, if the knight is placed on those four squares, it happens to be weak. It has to be weak. And when the pawn advances, like this, and the knight is on a dummy square, okay, this is a very serious problem. Okay, and the knight cannot defend against both threats. One threat is that the pawn is attacking the knight, and the second threat is in two moves the pawn is going to become a queen. So there are two threats: promotion by running straight, or by taking a knight. Okay, we're going to get promotion. Okay, so it is like a double attack. So when you sacrifice your knight like this, you put the defending knight on a dummy square and you create a double attack. And the double attack is attack on the knight or advancing to promote. Double attack. Okay? And that's the reason I put up this position, because there's something unique about this position. Okay? And it has to do with knight and dummy squares, where if you put the knight on a dummy square, you can create double attacks. And that's all I have to say about this. And the headbanger is correct. Oh, headbanger. Oh, welcome back. And so yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, you're asking questions which are outside the exercise I put up. Okay, but you know, I mean, this is just a fictitious position, just to illustrate a concept. So here, and you're saying what happens if we place here. That's what you're saying. Okay. Okay. I mean, what happens if okay. I mean, what happens if I play here? Then you're going to say, well, I go here, right? That's what you're going to say. And then what? I don't know. Okay, maybe I can advance once, and when he moves, maybe can I do this, force this, and then push this? And now, can a knight stop both pawns? I don't know. I mean, um, it doesn't seem like it. Okay, especially if it goes here, then we have a double attack, against the knight and the promotion square. Okay, but that's not the point. Okay, the point I want to illustrate is not the continuation. What is the best defense after this? Okay, I mean the point is when the knight takes here. Okay, the knight can't stop the a pawn, one pawn, right? Okay, so what makes you think? What makes you think after this and this, and I play this? Okay, that then after I take here, the knight is going to be able to stop two pawns when it could not stop one pawn before. Okay, now I haven't verified everything here, but the concept itself suggests that it probably won't work for the defense. And so I will end that dialogue on that note, and let's continue. Let's see. Yeah, let's go to the next one, and let's find it. Oh yeah, this is so pretty, man. Now, why did I pick this pattern for discussion? Okay, there was something probably aesthetic about it that I like. Okay, and that's why I picked it. Now, what I need to do here, I need to flip it, right? All right, so here's the position. Here's the position you're looking at, if you're looking at it. And it's black to play. And yeah, and the white pawn is attacking the rook. Okay, I noticed that. And material looks like three pawns, three pawns, three pawns, four pawns, four pawns, queen to queen, two rooks to two rooks. Material is the same. Material is the same. Okay. So what to do here? That's the question. What to do here? Do we have any ideas? Do we have any ideas? But again, if you look at this, if you look at this position and you start collecting information, right, right, okay, that's correct. All right, that's correct. I mean, look at this. The only thing that's protecting the king on the back rank is this one piece, right? In the meantime, black has two units attacking the e1 square. So black has two attacking this. And you see that? Black is attacking e1 twice. And the rook is defending e1 only once. So attacking defensive ratio favors black 2 to 1. Right? 2 to 1. So now if we remove the guard or remove that thing, we have a 2 to 1 ratio now. Okay? Two rooks on e1 and one king on e1. 2 to 1. Okay? And actually it's less than 2 to 1 because this is mate. It's like 2 to 0. Okay? So, yeah. Okay, but the point is, how do we find these moves? Okay? How do we find these moves? Okay, what is in the pattern that might suggest this kind of move? Okay, so we notice that the back rank is only guarded one time, right? And we also notice that the two rooks are doubled here, and e1 is attacked twice. So it's only guarded once and it's attacked twice. Okay, so now what does that mean? Can we find moves to make it count? And I mean, if the rook was, let's say, here, for example, then it's very clear 2 to 1. We can drop our rook here, and the rook here will take back, and we get a mate, back rank mate. But what happens if the rook is on not on this side, but it's actually over here. And then you can sacrifice to remove that in order to prepare the attack on E1, 2 against zip. And that's what we have. Alright, so that's how I found this pattern of something along these lines. Okay? Anyway, let's move on and let's see what happens in the next example. Alright, so this is a cute one. Okay, I discussed this theme before. So before I tell you what it is, okay, let's look at it and then we'll chat about it. Okay, so here's the position. Here's the position. And where do you go from here? Okay. I mean, if you look at this, okay, I mean, there's 4 pieces which are not developed in black's position. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This whole line of pieces have not been moved. Okay, they're sleepers, and so material is the same, but black has 4 sleepers and white has 2 sleepers. Okay, you see that? There you go. That's a mismatch. There's a problem here already. Okay, there should be a favorable mismatch for white. No. Can I give mate here? No, because d7 square is protected twice. Okay, and can I play here? And the d8 square is protected twice, right? So d8 square is hit twice with the queen and the rook, but it's guarded twice with the king and the rook. So that square is cancelled. And I'm also attacking d7 twice, but it's guarded twice. Okay, so somehow I have to create a mismatch, okay, where the ratio of attacks to defenders favor the attacker. Okay, so what's going on? They'll say, so maybe some of these pieces in black's position that are developed, maybe the rook and the queen are overworked, because the rook actually defends that square and the queen defends that square. Okay, and both of them are guarding that square. Okay, so now the question is, how do I stretch the defense? Okay, how do I create a favorable mismatch? Okay, by playing this move, and that's it. That wins material and creates a mismatch, because if the queen takes here, then it's going to be 2 against 1 on that square, mate, and the rook takes here, there'll be 2 against 1 on d8. Alright, so both pieces, the rook and the queen for black, are overworked, and then you can exploit this relationship, overworked pieces, by attacking the overworked pieces by playing rook takes a6. Now you're attacking the rook or the queen, and the only liberty that black has is to decide which way he's going to perish. Okay, he's going to perish on d8 or he's going to perish on d7, and that'll be decided with what piece he's going to take on a6, and that's it. Okay, overworked pieces. That was easy. Alright, so let's move to the next one. Alright, what's this about? I have no clue, but maybe I'll get a clue as oh yeah, now I got a clue. I remember some flashbacks. Alright, so this is a position, and believe it or not, I remember the players here. Tarjan versus Karpov. Okay, and it is black to play. It is and it is Karpov to move. He's playing black, and how does he finish off? Is there a way to finish off white? Okay, so if you don't know the answer, just start collecting information. So let me just flip the board a little bit, and let's make it this way. Okay, so black is going up, white is going down, and here's the position. Okay, so right now let's just collect information. We have 3 pawns, 4 pawns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, pawn wise it's about equal. Queen and rook equal. Okay, the white king is frozen and the black king is not frozen. So the black king is a better king. He has moves, and the white king has no moves. Okay, so the king position is unsafe for white. Okay, and the question is, can you exploit that? Okay, and now where do we start? Where do we start? Now, if you remember, I talked about attacking method. Okay? The king is exposed, and we have to use the attacking method. And our choice is an attacking method that checks, captures, and threats. So when we look at this position, we're looking for what type of move? We're looking for checks. And where are the checks? How many checks do we have to choose from? And let's look at them, each one of them, and see if the answer might be in one of them. Okay? You guys have any thoughts about this? Do you guys have any thoughts? Okay, well, I have thoughts. Okay? And the solution is this. Well, I have a check here. 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 I even have a check here. So there seems to be about 6 checks, right? 6 checks. And all the checks with the queen are failures. I mean, if I play here, I mean, the pawn is going to eat my queen. If I play here, he's going to run down. Okay. If I play here, he's going to take me for nothing. If I take here, I lose my queen. Okay. So it seems like I mean, I cannot take here because of the queen. I mean, it seems like all the queen moves are not good. I do have a check move with the rook. And now, if I do that, the white king can't move. It's frozen, right? Is it frozen or not frozen? Well, for one thing, if I play rook check on e3, right, the white king can't move, right? So either has to take the rook, or block with g3, right? So let's say if we play a move like this and he takes, it's mate, yeah. All right. So and by the way, and this is the attacking method. Check is attacking move, okay, and check is attacking move. So 2 check equals mate, yeah. Okay. So if I play the first check and let's say he blocks, right, I can play this check. And if he takes, then I can play a third check. It's mate. Okay. So again, so when you look at this position, you say, what did I learn from this position? Well, what you learned here is to collect information, and then you notice that the white king is weaker than the black king because the king is frozen, and then you try to identify attacking moves, and you start with checking moves. Okay, you identify all the checking moves, you make a list of them, and then you eliminate the ones that won't work, and what is left over should work, or you hope will work. Okay, so all the queen moves have been eliminated, so you kind of prune the tree of analysis, and you go with the rook check. And since the king cannot move, then either the rook has to be taken or a block has to happen on g3. In both cases, we continue with checks and it leads to mate. All right, so that's the lesson. All right, let's move on. Okay, so every time you do some kind of puzzle, some kind of exercise, okay, you're trying to derive, what you have learned from it. Now, this is a famous position from 1737. It's called Stama's position. Stama, I guess he was a player of that period, and he probably wrote books, wrote a chess book, and this is probably from his chess book. This is 1737. Okay, and I don't know. I put this position up because it's such an old position historically. Number one. And also, I found it very interesting that, we share the human mind, whether it is in the present or in the 1700s, okay? And in the human rationale, the human logic, okay? The ability to solve problems is shared, beyond the barriers of time. And I thought this is very interesting to look at. Okay, so we can share the commonality of being human. Anyway, something along those lines. All right, guys. So here's the position. Let me blow it up for you, and let's talk about this. Okay. All right. Okay. So who's here? I think this might be one of our last positions. So who's here? Let me have a roll call. Who's watching this? Who's watching this still? Okay, so if you guys like the content of this, you can follow me for notification for the next streams. You can also subscribe. Okay, or you can support the channel with other means. And thank you for your support and your subscriptions. And if there's something you would like me to do on one of these streams, leave me a note. And if possible, I will comply and find the material and present it for you. And we'll go from there. Anyway, so who's here right now? Let me hear a note in the chat and we'll go from there. All right, very nice. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is 1737. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Oh, thank you, thank you. Somebody's following me. I had this notification. Uh, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, super. I have a little buzzer here. It buzzes off, and this is the first time I've heard it because it was installed, I think, yesterday. It was programmed by Headbanger. I think he's here watching too. Okay, he's like a computer whiz, my support system. Anyway, here's the position. Let's see how this works. Okay, so I think the position starts actually from here. This is where the position starts. Okay, my mistake. So this is from the year 1737, and another human being is playing the white pieces from that year 1737. It's amazing. For some reason, it's amazing. And black is threatening checkmate immediately. Okay, that's something to notice. So I collect a piece of information. There's a checkmate here. Okay, so we have a checkmate. So the first thing to do is to stop the checkmate. How do we do it? I mean, there's only one way to do it, I guess, is to play this. So if the queen comes down, the rook is going to take the queen, and we stop the checkmate. So this move makes a lot of sense. And when you play this move, certain things happen. The queen must take here, and now the queen does not control the square here. You see, the rook here protects the back rank. Okay, but the back rank was protected also with the queen on h3. But when the rook comes here, okay, the rook becomes the only defender of the back rank by controlling the square. You see that? You see? And now you won't believe it. So the first move was, what kind of move is this? Let's look at this. So the first move was a threat, because this is not a check and this is not a capture, so it has to be a threat. And what is the threat? Take the queen in two moves. So this is move number one, and this is move number two. Take the queen in two. Okay, that's a threat. Okay, so that's executed. And the next move is a check. Wow. Okay, and the idea here is that if the rook takes, it's a smothered mate. Yeah, so the king has to take, right? The king has to take, right? But the knight hits the king with a check, and the king cannot run out because of the knight. So the king has to go in the corner, and now this rook is overloaded. It's overworked because this rook is protecting the back rank. It's also protecting the f7 square because the king is frozen. The king is frozen. So when I drop the knight on f7, okay, the king is frozen, is under attack, and the escape square is covered by the other knight. Okay, now both squares are covered. They're both locked up. Okay, and now when the rook takes the knight to stop the killing on the king, the back rank is weak. Check and mate. Whoa! Let's go back. This is amazing. This is amazing. So there's deflection involved. There's smothered mates involved. Okay, there are clearances involved, clearing lines. There are sacrifices. Okay, so is this part of the attacking method? Let's take a look. Is this attacking method move? Yes. Okay. Is this attacking method move? Yes. It's a yes. Is this attacking move method? Yes. Is this attacking move method? Yes. Is this attacking move method? Yes. Is this? Yes. Okay. So all the moves that were played is part of attacking method. Okay. Okay. Taking two. One. Okay. Taking two. So we can have a check in 2 as a threat. We can have a capture in 2. Okay, capture in 2, and that will be also a threat. So I play capture in 2. This is 1, and this is 2. I can capture in 2. All right. So I go 1. Okay, on my next turn I'm going to take the queen. So it doesn't, he stopped it. But the idea is the same, capture in 2. Okay, then I play check. Okay, so capture in 2 is part of the attacking method, capture in 2. And now check is part of the attacking method. So is this check, yes. And so is this check. And so is this check. And so is this. Okay, totally amazing. Totally amazing. 1737. Is that amazing or what? I mean, totally amazing. Okay, 1737. Wow. How different were people in 1737 from what we are now? Okay, I mean, maybe not that much. Okay, yeah. I mean, the technology was different, I guess, yeah. But the mind and the potential, I think it more or less is the same. Amazing, totally amazing. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. And what's left? Okay, so we're done with this one, and now we go to page number 2, and I think we have 4 left on this page, and we're done for our class today. Okay, guys. So we have 4 left, I believe. Okay. Okay, so let's start with this one, and this is a pretty easy one, and I put this one here because it's interesting and instructive. Okay. Now, the rook here is very important to be here because it's basically stopping the pawn from queening. All right. In the meantime, he's attacking the pawn. All right. So here's the position. Okay. Does white have the ability to promote safely? That's the question. Does white have the ability to promote safely? Do we have any thoughts on this position? And the answer is yes. So there are 2 things which are kind of very similar. One is called deflection, and the other one is called decoy. Okay, I always get confused which one is which and what really is the difference. Okay, and so far the best I can come with is deflection is moving a piece away from a square, and decoy is moving a piece to a particular square. I think that's the differential. All right. So if you notice here, the rook is fixed to that pawn and fixed to the promotion square. So by playing this move here, this is deflection because I'm moving the rook from its function of attacking the pawn and stopping promotion. I'm moving the rook from that function away from the function, and that's deflection. So when he takes here, then I can promote, and now we have a queen fork, and yeah, the game is over. All right, let's move on. I think this is a game. I'm not sure. I think Larry Evans was white, and maybe Paul Benko was black, if I remember. I think I'm pretty sure that's the case. I know one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the case. I'm definitely sure it was Larry Evans with white. Okay. So what is it about? Okay, where do we start? And where do we start with this position? Let's take a look. Okay, material. We have 3 pawns. He has 4, so we minus 1. Okay, queen to queen, rook to rook, bishop to bishop. Okay, and the only thing I want to mention is that in this position there are 2 basic weaknesses, and the weakness is the rook is out of commission, it's sleeping. What's the difference if this rook in the corner having no function of being off the board? Okay, that's a huge deficit, material deficit. Okay, and the second possibility, the king could be placed in check. Okay, so there are 2 weaknesses, the king and the rook. Okay, and so what's going on? So the first move is the check. Now if the king moves over, right, I can play bishop check and pick up the queen, right? So that means the king should not move, and there should be a block blocking it, right? And now the queen is frozen because of the pin. The queen cannot move. So, but now by playing this move, I'm attacking the bishop one time. I'm attacking the bishop twice. So attacking ratio on the e8 is 2, 2, and 1 guard. 2 to 1. Okay? You see that? And the queen cannot take the rook because of the pin. So after this, it's 2 to 1. Check and mate. Actually 2 to 0 because I don't know how this is defending anything. Okay? So we create a mismatch of some sort and we win. So favorable mismatches win games. So if you want to win games, create mismatches which are favorable. Okay, so where your attacking group is bigger, stronger than the defensive group, and therefore the differential in power should make a difference in material relationship. And that's it. Let's see what else is left here. What else is left here, baby? Let's look at this. Oh, this is kind of nice. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this and see what this means. All right. Well, there are two basic weaknesses. I mean, just to the start, he hasn't castled and the king is out of commission, right? Another weakness is the dark squares. Okay, the dark squares are weak because all the pawns are on the opposite color, so therefore the dark squares are weak. So we have a weakness with the king, we have a weakness of the rook, we have the weakness of the dark squares. Okay. All right, and another weakness happens to be white's move. Okay, so at least 4 or 5 advantages in white's position, and I don't know what anything that black might have that's considered a plus. Now, so we play what? Okay, so the attacking method is based of 3 type of moves: checks, captures, and threats. We have a check, so we throw it in. Now, if the king goes to f8, for example, right? We can keep attacking with another check, and when the king moves, we keep attacking with another check. It's mate. So 3 checks equals mate. Yeah. All right. So let's go back. So there's a checky wecky, and now if he blocks with a queen, for example, right? Okay. Can I win the queen for free? And you say what? No, because the knight is protecting it. Okay. But if I play this move here, and the king has no choice than to take the rook, which he does. Okay, the knight is pinned, and therefore the knight has no ability to protect the queen. Therefore we can take the queen for free, and that's a win. Okay, let's go back. So after queen to a4, checky wecky, if he blocks with the knight, for example, okay, now the diagonal is open, okay, and we can drop the rook here, and that'll be a mate. Okay, in the meantime d8 is covered once and twice, or is it? Okay, so if we take this with a check, we remove one of the guards of d8. Okay, and then when he takes back, there are 0 guards on d8, so now the ratio is 2 to 0. Okay, and we can deliver the mate. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, that's all I have to say about this position. Okay, so what did I say about this position, about the pattern? Okay, I mean, basically what I did, I kind of identified the weaknesses, I guess, in black's position. He hasn't castled, right? He hasn't castled. The king is in the center of the board, so to speak. He hasn't castled. The rook is in the corner, hasn't moved. So those 2 pieces are ridiculous. Okay, there's a weakness on the dark squares, and it's white to move. So, and what is black's advantage? What is black's advantage? I think if the position was safe, I mean, pawn structure will be black's advantage, but that's an endgame feature, and because of many disadvantages here in so-called late, let's say, middle game, the endgame will never materialize, and therefore, by using the attacking method, white is able to shut down the position and win the game, and not consider the endgame at all. And that's what happens after checky wecky, checky wecky, checky wecky, yeah. Okay, I'm being a little silly, but okay, it's been a long day. So let's move to the next one. Okay, so let's see what this is about. I think this is the last one, guys. Yeah, it is the last one. Okay, so we're going to finish this one and we're done. Okay, so let's yeah, let's kind of enjoy the last one and slow down. You know what I'm saying? So let's go back here to see where you guys are. And yeah, so what you guys think about all of this? Was this interesting? Give me some feedback. Do you think this is kind of interesting stuff? Do you think there's some kind of value in this? Okay. I think there's value because I'm presenting it. So if I'm presenting it, I think it's valuable because I have chosen the content, and for some reason, I believe this content is good content, and this content carries certain, I guess, lessons. And if you're able to grasp these lessons, then you'll be able to reproduce these patterns. And I think that's my take on it. Okay. And but the real question is, do you feel that that this was helpful in some way? What do you guys think? Give me some thoughts. Okay, so while you're thinking to what to say in the chat, let me complete the last one and let me share with you my thought process. All right, and let's open it, and this is the position. All right, now let's look at the blocking for a second. He has one square, he has two squares. So the black king only has two squares to move back and forth on, right? Two squares. Okay. So those two squares, which are marked in, let's say, blue, I need to shut down. If I'm able to shut them down, it'll be checkmate. Okay. Now, and if I'm going to use the attacking method, my first choice of attack will be checks. Now, where are the checks? Okay, I mean, there's a check here. And from here, I will give a check. And there's a check here. And from there, I will give a check to the king, yeah? All right. All right. Yeah, so what's going on? And there's something called the kiss of death, when the queen is really close to the black king. Okay, right, standing next to it, one square apart. That's called the kiss of death. So for the queen to be very close to the black king, okay, the queen will be able to do the kiss of death. Okay, but yeah, so how will I do that? Okay, how will I do that? And I need to maybe try to see if I can get some free moves in. Okay, so the black army will be, kept asleep. For example, if I play check here, for example, right here, check, and the king moves, and I move here, and that's not a check. Now it's black to play. Now black army is alive. Okay, it's alive. It can now try to defend. Okay, but what happens, for example, if I make a threat like I play here? And the idea behind this is that the queen won't be able to guard that square and not be able to get here with extra tempo. Okay, so when he takes, I can play check, and now take this. Okay, take this with a check. And now this is mate, so to speak, because the king cannot go back because of the queen. And the king cannot take the rook because of the queen. And now the pawn has to take the rook, and I have a kiss of death. Okay, so basically, like this move here, I mean, everything was done with checks. Okay, did I gain any move? So basically, by sacking the queen, I have been given free moves. This is one free move, right? This is another free move, and this is another free move, because everything followed with checks. Okay, so the first one is to get the free moves by sacking the rook, and now the queen is out of position, and everything what follows is checks, and we're getting like 3 free moves because the black army cannot respond to anything. It's just watching. Okay, so this is kind of amazing. Okay, I don't know if I have worded it correctly. Maybe I haven't explained it as well as I could have, but I guess it's work in progress. But maybe you can decipher what I'm trying to say, and if you have a better way to explain it, maybe you can tell me. But anyway, it's along something along these lines. All right, so let me go back here for a sec, and here we are. So we are at the end of our presentation, of my presentation. I hope it was useful for you guys. Thank you for being with me, and hope to see you again. And do follow and do subscribe to my channel, uh, and um, and also you can join chess.com and have a little group called there Punk Monk Z. It's open door policy. You can join it, and we're going to do stuff in there that might be useful for educational entertainment and making friendships and so on. And yeah, so eventually we're going to utilize the club to do something along those lines, and we have already have started some stuff. We have special forums there on the end games, on tactics. We're playing team matches, we're playing vote chess and whatever. You can join all of that for free. And anyway, thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys again. And my next showing will be, today's what? What's today? Let me think. Today is Wednesday, right? So today's Wednesday. My next showing will be Friday. So I have till Friday. At Friday, I'm going to prepare a new lesson, um, a new educational, I don't know, video, and and I hope you guys will profit by showing up, and you can share your time with me, and we can both prosper. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys later. Let me draw the curtain down. I have a little thing here, and let me draw it down if I can. Hold it, and I'm going to put it on. Voila, baby. And yes, I'm Punk Monk Z, and I'll see you guys again. So I'm going to give you maybe a minute or two to calm down, because I know you're going to miss me. And then I'm going to log out. And that's that.